This is the second video in a two-part video about building our house, the costs involved, and the process we went through. The first video we actually published quite a bit ago. I have to apologize, but we ran into some issues. We had a family issue of severe illness, one of our family members, and everything just kind of got out of line, and we postponed this video. So here we are, we're making the video now. And also I wanted to talk real quick about another issue. I reviewed the first video and I noticed that our camera cut out. Well, it cut out several times, but one of the times it cut off one of the costs that we talked about, and that was with respect to having power brought up to our property. And initially we had to write a check to the power company for over $11,000. And I wanted to mention that just briefly so you understand that to get power to your place, you're going to have to pay for that. And that $11,000, basically what it got us was a power cable run through the conduit that we put in the excavation, the ditch work that we did, and also the installation of the transformer at our build site. And the cable was about 450 feet from the power pole to where our transformer was placed, and then the transformer itself. We also put in the base for the transformer ourselves, installed that. So that's that cost real quickly. Now moving on, we left off where we had already talked to the county, and they told us a lot of the requirements that we needed to get a permit. We had a contractor lined up. In the meantime, we signed a contract with the contractor, and the contract that we signed with him was based on current costs at the time, cost of materials, and again, it was during the COVID-19 pandemic, and so everything was very, very much more expensive. But our contract gave us a timeline of 6 months to build the house. It also gave us a total dollar amount for the work that he was going to have done, and that total dollar amount was $586,245. And in the contract it stated the cost would not go over that. Now keep in mind that we made some changes to our build. We added some things, we took some things away, so costs changed, but we did come in at that budget.
And as far as the 6 month time estimate that he gave us, I knew right away it was going to be longer than 6 months, but we had that in our mind. 6 months, he should have maybe managed our expectations a little better and given himself some more time knowing what happens when you build a house.
Yeah, well, our 6 months really turned into a year and a half, so
9 months for him to build the place in order to get what do you call it?
A certificate of occupancy. Yeah, but that, you have to understand that you can get a certificate of occupancy if the project, your house, is not complete. There could be things that aren't done yet that have to be completed. For us, we got that just in the nick of time because our storage unit that we had run out of time on that. The contract, we had been told that we needed to get our stuff out of a storage unit we had not far from here. A lot of things came to a head where we really had to get into our property, and so we told him whether it was ready or not, we were going to start moving stuff in. And so he got with the county, and we did get our CO, and we're able to move our stuff in, but the house was far from done at that point, but it was livable.
Right.
So we'll give him that. So moving on with the build itself, we found out from the county what we needed to do to get a building permit. So one of those things was we had to contact the state of Colorado, where we live, and they had to come out and do a fire mitigation survey of our property. And they had to physically look at where our house is, where our house was going to be built. They had to look at the terrain, they had to look at the trees on the property, and they did their own study too. They did an aerial survey, they did a lot of things, and they came back with a report that told the county what we needed to do to satisfy the state of Colorado as far as fire mitigation goes. And we had to actually do all the things that they said for the county to even consider us getting a permit. One of those things was we had 3 trees that they determined were too close to the build site, and so we had to remove those 3 trees. It's not a big deal, but all those little things add into the process you go through to make sure you can get your building permit. On top of the state doing their fire mitigation survey, we also had to have the county come out and do a fire mitigation survey. But on top of that, we had to meet with the county and review the plans, and this is after we had all the engineering reports and everything that we needed to make sure that the house is built to codes where we live. And then they looked over our plans and whatnot, and there's a process. It was like 5 pages long. We had to fill out this survey. And each time you have something on this survey that is a bad thing for fire mitigation, then it adds some points to it. And if you go over a certain number of points, they don't issue a building permit. And an example is if you have a real wood siding on your house, that's so many points. Because if there's a fire nearby, obviously real wood siding burns. If you have a fireplace and it's a real wood burning fireplace, that's a huge number of points that go on this survey. And literally wood siding on a house and a wood burning fireplace, and you're done. You don't get a building permit. They won't issue it anymore. And it's not just where we live that's going through this kind of change. It's all over the United States. The wildfires in California and Hawaii recently, and other catastrophes that are happening. It's starting to change the way municipalities are looking at issuing building permits. What do they allow? What do they not allow? So what we ended up doing, we had to commit to it too with the county. It had to be part of our build plans in writing. As we went with cement-based siding for our house, we went with a metal roof. We do have a fireplace, but it's a propane fireplace, and so there are no sparks emitted from it or anything like that. We went with all composite decking so that we wouldn't have any exposed flat wood surfaces that would burn. In addition to that, we can't have any vegetation up near the house. There's a 4-foot zone that goes clear around the house that you can't plant any vegetation. It can be rock or it can be dirt, but no vegetation. We had to clear trees for the most part. There are a few exceptions, but it's 200 feet back from the build site in a lot of places. All these things went into how we built our house, and obviously how our builder understood the build and pricing and all that kind of stuff that goes into building a house.
Can we go back to the engineer
Sure.
stuff that we didn't know we were supposed to do? So we had our house plan and we had our contractor, and we're like, okay, let's build the house. Little did we know, the county, obviously every county I'm sure does this, needs a report from an engineer. They need is it an engineering of the roof?
Yes.
And then also our septic tank and the field out there, the leach field. We had no idea we needed engineering reports for that. So that was a big scramble trying to get all that approved before we even met with the county.
Correct. And to get the engineer's report for the septic field, they have to do a percolation test where they dig 3 holes, and these holes are they're about 10-12 inches across, and they go down. I think ours were 18 inches down, and they actually physically fill them with water, and they measure how fast the water percolates or goes into the ground, and that determines how the leach field for your septic system is engineered. I guess you could say, because we are on a leach field, we're not hooked up to sewer with the county or anything. That's one off-grid aspect of our build, and that ended up being really a huge deal.
Yeah.
To give you an example, our leach field has 5 runs. Each run is 110 feet long, and our main septic tank is 1,750 gallons. And this is all done because of this engineering report. So you take a septic field in a lot of parts of the country where you may have one 100-foot run, or 2 at the most, and then a 1,000-gallon septic tank. Ours was 2-3 times the size of an average septic field. I mean, it's just huge compared to most of our neighbors. It's huge, and with that huge septic field comes a huge cost. I mean, it's not cheap. Nothing is cheap about all of that. But Kelly's right. All these engineer reports, the county made sure we had them. It was the septic field, it was the roof, it was the foundation, it was the flooring system, the walls. I mean, all of this stuff we had to have engineer reports for. One thing else I might add is that on the exterior, where you have, some people like to have really nice wood handrails and that kind of stuff, we had to go with metal. And then we went with some stonework on some of the pillars, and even the wood supports for our porch roofs and our deck roofs, that kind of thing, they had to be clad with cement-based materials that are non-combustible. I mean, the exterior of our house basically is an envelope that won't burn. You could get scorching on paint, I suppose, if there was a fire, a tree too near the house, but you're not going to have the structure itself catch on fire.
Let's hope we don't have to test that.
Yeah, Kelly and I noticed one thing. I know I'm kind of going off on the sidetrack here, but in that horrible wildfire that just occurred on Maui, there's this one community where there's one house that was left standing, where everything around it burned down. And Kelly kind of read up on that, and the reason it didn't burn is because they had
They had
a
a
metal
metal roof.
and
It didn't have any debris on it, and then they didn't have any vegetation around their house.
so those theories, I guess, do work in practice. And this house, we want it to last forever. It's going to be a legacy home that's passed down when we're gone to our son, and we just didn't want to build something that was going to be a risk in the future. And you never know. There was a fire a year ago that was just a few miles from here where 5 homes burned down, and you just never know. So we wanted to do things right, and we complied with everything that the county told us to, and that was the only way we were going to get a permit anyway. So now we've got the engineering reports, we've met with the county, we've done everything that we need to do, and the county literally had to say, yeah, it's okay, cool, you can go ahead and you can start working on your foundation, you can put your foundation in. Along with that, we had to supply the county with, and it was kind of primitive, I understand, but we had to show on paper where our build site was with respect to the borders to our property. So we had some plot maps, and we used those to show where our shop is now and where our house is going to be built. And there are setbacks where we live. There are setbacks no matter where you build. For us, it was you couldn't be within 40 feet of a property line, and so you're on 40 acres, not an issue. But say you have a half an acre, at 40 feet, that's a big portion of your property. So you got to keep all those things in mind. So we've got the builder, we've got We've got our permit now. The county issued our permit after we did their fire mitigation survey and we did the state's. And then we had to prove that we did what the state of Colorado wanted us to do. We did it with photographic evidence and all that kind of stuff. And so they said, okay, yeah, you're good to go. And we paid our fee for the permit, and we're off to the races. You know, our builder, I think we were kind of amazed at first. You know, we were like kids in a candy store because things happen really quickly at first. The foundation, the work for the foundation, we used the same excavator that we had used for our shop, coincidentally, and this is all being done by our general contractor. And you're walking through it and you're going, oh my, I can't believe this is so cool, you know. I can't imagine that it would go this fast, right? And so we're thinking, yeah, this isn't going to take long at all. I can build this house in 6 months. And then he brings in his carpenters, and they come up and they start all the framing. And in the meantime, they did excavation from where our termination point for our water, when we brought it up, was by our shop, up to the house, and they had the water line going in underneath the foundation, and just a lot of things are happening all at one time, and it's kind of amazing to watch. And it's a process that if you're not familiar with it, it's you get these really neat feelings of, man, this is going to be so cool, and that kind of stuff. And then the problems start, of course.
There's going to be delays no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So you just have to plan that.
You got to really roll with the punches. You'll have so many good days where the weather's just beautiful and nothing's happening on your build. And you'll get a hold of your contractor, and maybe he'll answer the phone, or maybe he won't. But you have those kinds of slow times. We had a period of 6 weeks where nobody came up to work on the property, and there was just really no answer. You have to understand that your builder is not just building your house. He's probably building 3, 4, 5, depending on how experienced your builder is, but building multiple properties at one time, and yours isn't going to be the only one that gets his people working on it. And with our builder, he had his set group of people. These guys did framing, these guys did I'm just picking some stuff, flooring and tile work and drywall and window installs and roofing and all of these things that go into it. And so he's scheduling them for all of his jobs, not just yours. And for our house, for instance, the two guys did all the framing. I mean, they were really good, but just 2 guys did all the framing. You'd think 10 guys are going to come in and frame a house. Well, that's not usually the way it works. And they did a good job. One of the best crews that he had were the 2 framers. They were 2 brothers, but they were doing several jobs, and there were delays there too, because one of them had to leave the country for a period of a couple of weeks, and it just all added up into that thing. Something that we didn't mention is once we got all of our ducks in a row as far as the permit and all this kind of stuff, our builder had a contract drawn up, and we signed the contract, and we gave him a deposit to build our house. And I don't care what builder you have, unless it's your husband or wife, you have to pay a deposit to have them build your house. And so we gave our builder a deposit of $100,000, and that locked him in, and with that he could do things like that. $100,000, you can buy the materials to build the house, for all the framing and this kind of stuff, and he has to pay as he goes. He also has to pay people like the excavation work. Just going off of the cost from our contract, a sheet from our contract, the site work and excavation work was over $50,000. It was $50,498. The concrete work was $47,471. So you can see that that stuff starts adding up quickly. And besides that $100,000 deposit we gave him, then we had to do 4 installments as work progressed on the house. And one thing I would caution you on, I would not get a contractor that makes you pay up front for work on the house before it's done. You want a contractor that's going to show you in paper and walk through the build process with you and show you where the money's being spent. And when they spend the money and they have the subcontractors, when this work's being done, you want the work to be done. You can physically look at it and verify that's what he said he was going to do is being done. And at that point, once it's done, you make the payment. Don't pay in advance. That's where so many people get burned. You hear the stories and you read about it and you see it on TV and these kinds of things where people pay all this money up front and then they just walk away and they never get satisfaction from it. You can take them to court and they can be ordered to pay money to you in a civil court, but most times you're not going to get the money, and if they're dishonest, and you're just out the money. And so you got to be really careful about that. So, do you have some? Oh, okay. And so the house was being built, and we could physically come in on a day-to-day basis and check things. I would come in the house as it's being built, and I'd do things like I'd sweep up and I'd clean up and I'd walk around. I was on top of what was being done all the time because I was living in a trailer right beside the build. And yeah, I tried to, as much as I physically could, I tried to leave our builder alone and let him do his thing. But there were times where I had questions and whatnot, and I just had to get involved. One of those big times for me was when they started doing drywall. And I was looking at the drywall and I thought to myself, this is not good. And so I met with our builder and I told him what I thought, and he came up and we did a tour of the house. And Kelly and I have done projects over the years. And so we had experience in framing, we had experience in drywall, we had experience in rough-in electrical and plumbing. All these things we had done ourselves. And so you could look at some of these things and go, this is just not right. The seams for the drywall, a lot of things just weren't going well. And so I told him, I said, it's unacceptable, I won't accept it. And he said, yeah, no, I don't blame you. I understand completely. And this drywall company, the owner came up and then met with us. And the next thing we knew, he had a completely different crew up here. And I mean, in 3 days, they finished the drywall, and it really came out nice. The texture on it, it's a hand troweled texture. It's a custom touch that we liked. And so after that issue, we got drywall that was, you know, it's as good as you're going to get in the industry. So some of the costs involved, I talked about the site excavation and concrete, the superstructure, the framing. Just to frame the house was $132,000. Electrical was $21,000. Plumbing, $25,000. HVAC, almost $21,000. And keep in mind, even though we live at 8,000 feet and none of our neighbors have it, we had central air. And there were days, yeah, there were days when we were really glad we did.
Yeah.
Windows and doors, trust me on this one, windows and doors is a big deal. That's $56,000 of our budget. And we did make a change there. All of our windows were supposed to be custom sized. And so we saved $25,000 by going with standard sizes. And all these standard sizes were within 1 or 2 inches of the custom size that were in the plans. But it saved us that much money. And also, you don't have to order a whole bunch of custom windows that who knows how long they take to get in. Interior wall finishes, meaning the drywall, paint and trim. another $57,000, and we went with taller baseboards and like I said, the hand trowel finish on the drywall and a lot of those things. Also with windows and doors, we went with French doors off of the 2 main bedrooms. Cabinets, counters, and glass, like the glass would be like shower doors and walls and that kind of thing. That was $73,000. And because we live up here, we went with the luxury laminate. And I'm super glad we did, because Moose, the wonder dog, is not a dainty little thing. He's 100. And also cabinets. We did go with nice cabinets, but we changed the plans because we were supposed to have a horseshoe-shaped kitchen island, and instead we went with a straight island. It saved us money on the countertop, which we went with quartz, and it saved us money on the cabinets because we weren't doing any funky corners and that kind of stuff. So we actually saved several $1,000s by doing a straight island instead of exterior finishes. That's a big deal because you're talking about the siding, and we went, like I said, with the cement siding, and our builder tried to talk us into doing the whole house in stucco, and we just didn't want to do that. So the exterior finishes are $97,500, and then his insurance that he had to have as a builder to cover all of the what ifs up here. Say something happened, even from theft of tools to a fire in the structure or damage to the structure, or say one of his workers gets hurt. Just for our build alone, he had to pay $4,400, and so that's a cost we picked up. So that gives you an idea of what some of the costs were. All of that added up to $586,245. But you have to understand there were a lot of other costs involved, and I'm going to list off a few of them here, and Kelly can jump in anytime too. There was a code change in the county where we lived 4 to 5 years before we built. Our builder didn't know about it. None of our neighbors knew about it. But when they came out to inspect the framing, that's when we all found out about it. And that is, on the exterior of our house, we had to have what they call zip panels. These panels are, it's like a fiberglass coating over OSB oriented strand board, these 4x8 sheets, and then a 1-inch rigid foam that's permanently attached to the back side of it. Our entire exterior of our house had to be covered with this stuff. And that was a $10,000 hit we didn't even know about until we were building. Our builder didn't even know about it. He hadn't planned on buying the materials, and so they weren't available, but he lucked out. He found a semi-truck full of this material and bought the whole thing. And so I'm sure he used it on other builds, but that was a cost we hadn't counted on. We bought all the appliances. We did that ourselves, and that, appliances aren't cheap. Trust me on that. We bought all the door and drawer hardware for the bathrooms and the kitchen to finish out, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you talk several $100s, all this stuff adds up. We wanted a pot filler above our stove, and so we purchased that. The fireplace mantle is 200-year-old timber that came out of an old barn or some type of structure like that, and that antique wood is very expensive. Our builder was going to do our drive in front of the attached garage to our house in gravel, and when you're living out in the country, you got to have a dry spot, some concrete somewhere where you can wash cars and you can do projects and that kind of stuff. And so we told him, no, we want a driveway out there, and so that had to be added. We have a hot tub off the second master bedroom, or excuse me, main bedroom, and slab work, concrete work had to be put in for that. That wasn't in the initial cost. That was extra. And the hot tub itself was extra. And that's, you're talking for the concrete work for the driveway and for the hot tub with the piers that go down into the ground and all of this stuff, you're talking, what, 12,
I have no idea.
yeah, it was 12, 13, $14,000. And he did it at a break in the cost for us, or so he said. We put in a shed roof above where the hot tub is. That wasn't in the original cost. And I'm sure there are others that I haven't mentioned, but all these things add up, and that's on top of what we paid to our builder. And you add into that the excavation work for bringing power and water up here, the permit with the county, the cost to the water utilities and the power company and all this stuff. When you boil it all down, the total cost for this build, and keep in mind, it's 1,800 square feet completed. Our build was $700,000. And then if you count that at square footage, it's just under $400 a square foot, and we're out in the country. If you go to the big city near us, which is 20,000 people, the cost per square foot to build a house is in the $250, $275 a square foot range, and again, we were just under $400 a square foot. So that shows you, if you're building out in the country, it does cost a lot more. And we made some changes to the house too. You have to think about that when you're building. You're going to have things dawn on you that you hadn't thought about before you started building that you notice and you have to have changed. And the builder's going to do whatever you want, but when you make a change, it adds money to the bottom line. We moved the front door flush with the front of the house, and we decided that when the foundation was going in, luckily, and so that added just a few more square feet. And it took the bump in where you'd have this enclave where the front door is, where you'd collect leaves and dirt and debris and that kind of stuff, and it made it flush with the front of the house. And it's one change that we really are glad we did. We added another window to our main bedroom where we sleep. We added the taller baseboards. We eliminated a chimney stack on the top of the roof that was completely decorative because it was a visual impact for our neighbors, and we had talked to them, and that was one thing that they thanked us for doing. Even though we're quite a ways away, you're talking about views of mountain ranges and that kind of thing. We use standard cabinets in the kitchen, although we have the soft closed drawers and doors and all of that stuff, but we went with standard sizes and that kind of thing, and that saves a lot of money because kitchen cabinets are very, very expensive. I told you about the kitchen. I already told you that we went with the straight island, and that eliminated some costs there. Standard size windows, that was another big deal. And these cost savings offset a lot of the costs that we incurred, like the zip panels. We were able to offset that cost with some of the other savings. All non-combustible materials on the outside of the house when we started the build, that's not what we had initially wanted. We added central air. Like I said, we did a lot of the costs ourselves, and so the bottom line is 1,800 square feet, $700,000. I hope that helps you in making a decision on how you build your house and that sort of thing. Please let us know. If you have any questions and you watch the video, let us know. We'll answer any questions that we can. We've had experience building projects in the past, but nothing on this kind of scale. We're going to do another video that'll be a third part to this. And Kelly's going, a third part? What are you talking about? Well, anyway, we're going to do a third part, and that's where we're going to do a tour. We're going to show you the outside of the house, and we'll show you, the exterior and the stuff. It'll make sense to you when we talked about all this stuff. It'll make sense when you look at it, physically look at it, and actually see what we're talking about. And then a tour of the inside, and you'll get to see what we built for you know, 1,800 square feet and the $700,000, and we like it. We've got vaulted ceilings, we've got tray ceilings in bedrooms, we've got you know, a big open area in the center of the house, and the two main bedrooms are separated on either side of the house. You'll see what we're talking about. All the lighting is custom. All the main areas have ceiling fans. It's a nice house. You know, it's not a big house. If you're after a big house, this just isn't it.
No.
But we had the big houses. We had the, you know, 3,600 square feet, 4,700 square feet. We had all that stuff, and that's not what we were after. We wanted something that was manageable. People could come visit us, and we could enjoy the countryside, and our dog Moose can run around, and he's free to, you know, be a dog inside the house. He's a big, lovable dog, 110 pounds. He won't scratch the floors, and we can live. We can have kids in here. We can have dogs, and we can have a nice place to live. But anyway, that's our build.
I do have a video out there that gives you a quick overview of the outside from the back and the front. And it's the framing video, and I just kind of do a compilation of the pictures we took when we framed the house. So, but we'll do another one.
Yeah, Kelly will do another one. She's starting to get the hang of all this camera stuff, and we'll include. We have hundreds of pictures of the build, but we didn't do a video because we didn't know we were going to be involved in YouTube and that kind of stuff at that point. And she'll do some more videos and show more of the build, you know, the framing, and because it's kind of cool looking at the process. It's something, if you've never built a house and never done something like this, it's a big deal. It really is. There are a lot of really fun times, and there's some frustrating times, and when you get to the point where you're actually living in the structure and turning it not just into a house but a home, then, you know, that's when the exciting stuff starts. Not, you know, the build itself has exciting moments and some very frustrating moments, but it's worth it in the end. You know, it's not an easy process, but it's worth it in the end. Anyway, thanks for checking out the video. Let us know if you have any questions, and we'll answer them. And watch for a video here in the not too distant future. I'm going to say within a week, where we show you the exterior or interior of the house, so you have a perspective to put with this video and the first video. And then Kelly's going to be doing some more videos, and so am I. I want to talk in the future. I'm going to do a video about some of the stuff we did in preparation for building, like we purchased a tractor, and we did some other things that are needed for when you have 40 acres. And anyway, thanks a lot. We'll see you in the near future.
Bye.